Hey, how you doing? Um, okay, let me adjust this. Sorry if I'm looking away. I'm just my camera's in a different. God, my camera's not in the same eye line as my screen at the moment. I'm just gonna do that. So even if I'm looking down, I'm at least looking toward you. How about that? Huh? How about that? All right. So we're doing it. We're making it happen. So yeah, no one's here yet. But I'm gonna start. What we're doing is we're talking about Boeing. If you haven't seen, there's a lot going on with Boeing airplanes. See, not only are they killing people in other countries with their warplanes, now with their commercial jets, they are killing Americans and well, not even just Americans. I just thought of there was one flight coming out of Sydney, Australia, that well, a fucking wheel fell off or fuel was leaking. I don't even know, man. But yeah, just shit keeps falling off of these planes. They're not working right. They're leaking fuel. They're using dish soap as whatever lubricant they need in manufacturing, and this is all because of cost cutting. It's from taking engineers out of their you know process, out of their sort of hierarchy of inspection and all of that, taking engineers out of that process and putting in fucking finance assholes who just know how to cut costs. That's what they do. And I just saw a great, like top tier headline from the New York Times. It's just so good. It's just give me a second. I want to get this right. Boeing faces tricky balance between safety and financial performance, and it's just in a sensible world, you would just nationalize this fucking company, right? And that's, I'm not saying everything's perfect in China, but like that's like a place where their economics are sensible enough that they know the way these incentive structures work. They can't have it this way. They're not going to let it stay this way, where Boeing just gets to financialize their company and keep cutting costs at the expense of safety, at the expense of people's jobs, so that their fucking stock goes up. And then they do stock buybacks and all this shit that they use to bump up the value of the company for the benefit of shareholders. And shareholders or stakeholders should be, people who do the work, people who use the service, and that's why you bring it under, government run or government control is one thing, but I would also like to see some democratization among the workers at these companies, among the consumers, as they're called in America, in the West, because those are the people who know how the shit works. And the fact is that people, especially at the engineering level, or when it comes to the railroads, it's the conductors, it's the people who do maintenance, who inspect, who build, who run the trains, who just want to do their job well. Like they learned a skill to use it, not to fucking financialize a company and just bring in more and more uh, uh, share value so that to pay out more to shareholders. they want to do their job and do it well, right? Train makers want to build trains, and plane makers want to build planes. It's these assholes at the top that are ruining all of these experiences for the human race. Because again, I say, when I mentioned the railroads, well, what happened with the railroads? The workers were saying for months, like for a long time before even these major derailments like the East Palestine, Ohio, like before that stuff started happening, they were raising the alarm. They were raising the alarm, sounding the sounding the alarm on these mechanical problems and lack of inspection time and lack of adequate staffing on these trains. They were raising, sounding the fucking alarm bell on these things to try to fix them. And no one listened to them because they're not in charge. So then you have these disasters. And if unions aren't doing the trick, because they don't, unions are great, but they have limitations under capitalism. Like there's only so much they can do, especially when the corporations and our government are as entwined as they are in the U.S. and I'm sure much of the West, the great white West. So put the fucking people who understand these things, put the people who do this work, who love this work, and who understand this work in charge. And treat these things as services that don't need to make more profit every year than the year before, because that's unsustainable. This is Marx. The rate of increasing profit has a tendency to fall. And that's just true. That is observable in every industry, in every every product, every service, and that's the reason why companies lean into layoffs and cutting corners and financialization, because they are trying to raise these profits, right? And you can't just raise prices forever. That's one thing you can do to bring in more revenue, is to raise prices. But you can't expect people to just keep raising and raising. I mean, unless it's fucking housing, right? But even that, the homeless population is ballooning. It's exploding here in America, because of all of this. And so that's what's happening. They're not just kind of making planes less safe because they're evil. It's this incentive structure of, you have shareholders to pay out, you have bonuses to give to executives, you have all this stuff, and you have to keep profits raising, right? Like the companies are supposed to do this. They're supposed to raise profits every year or every quarter, whatever it is, because they're required to do it. But that's how you do it, is you cut corners, you lay people off, you pay people less, you understaff and overwork people. And none of that is sustainable, right? If you think about it for 2 seconds, you're like, well, you can't keep people working at this pace. You can't, you can only cut safety so much, like what are they going to do? Take out the seatbelts, take out the seats, take out the, like what? Yeah, what else can you even do? And but they do it because capitalism doesn't have a long view, and especially the U.S. doesn't have a long view of these things. So sorry about the video quality here. Streamlabs is telling me we've had 5 interruptions, 5 skipped frames. And that's probably because my camera's not that good. My computer's not that good. My internet is not that good. So I don't know, man. I'm giving this a shot, and I'm hoping to obviously upgrade all of that stuff at some point. I'm a little bit of an audio head myself. I'm less of a camera head or photography head, but I'd like to learn and get something that's gonna do the job. But right now, this is what we got. But I'm happy a couple of people were here at least. I had 2, and now there's 1. And whoever you are, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, what else? Oh, yeah, so TikTok is possibly getting banned. The House passed the bill. I had heard that it was likely to pass in the Senate, but it's I don't know. I've heard different things over the past couple of days. I think they, I don't know, maybe they're seeing the backlash, which, I don't know, hasn't stopped them before, but they're seeing the backlash. They're maybe not seeing the benefit to their own careers, to their own relationships with their constituents. I don't know what it is, but it has been said that it's less likely to pass the Senate now. They need 60 votes, and there is bipartisan support. But whatever it is, Biden said he would sign it if it gets passed, which means we're looking down the barrel of a possible TikTok ban. I'm actually going to look this up. Let's see what they're saying about the Senate now. Senate TikTok a ban. Excuse me. Got a little bit of a frog in my throat. Cricket. Not cricket. Ribbit. Right? Croak. I don't know. Okay, let's see. They voted for the bill that could ban TikTok. They also actively use the app. Yeah, that is a lot of our government. I mean, fucking Biden is on TikTok right now, doing campaign videos. I mean, it's absurd. Okay, so here we go. TikTok ban or divest bill, and I didn't mention that about it. If you don't know, the TikTok ban bill is not necessarily a ban, because the idea is the company would have, I think, 6 months to sell to an American parent company, because that's their fucking problem with it. Is it's owned by a Chinese communist company called ByteDance. Yeah, which is based in China, and who knows? China's system is weird. I don't know how much of a hand the Chinese government has in ByteDance, but it doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, China is not going to do anything worse with your data than American companies already do. But that's the idea. They're supposed to sell it or it'll be banned. And ban means they will ban the app from the app stores. So what does that mean? Well, then you wouldn't be able to update the app, and I don't know how long that would leave before the app becomes kind of unusable, which I think is a risk. Maybe you could use the browser version, but if not, you could probably use it with a VPN. I've heard VPNs are a little sussy baka. They're, you know, they they have every content creator fucking advertise them, and it's always you get like 83% off for 2 years or so. It's like crazy deals. You're like, this doesn't make sense. And it might be one of those things where they just say like, this is the full price, but you're getting it for this, and it's kind of always the low price. I don't know, but yeah, they're a little sus, I guess, that they, maybe the FBI has kind of a hand in it or whatever the hell it is. But you can use a VPN, and in that case, I would imagine you could use the site even if it's blocked in the U.S., which is interesting because, I thought that was what we hated about China is they block fucking websites, and North Korea doesn't let their people have a full internet, and I don't even know if that's true. People just fucking say shit about China. A lot of it is bullshit. But anyway, TikTok ban or divest bill is going nowhere fast in the Senate. It's from 3 days ago. Let's see what's up. Got to put on my glasses. Let's see. Okay, and this is MSN.com, but they're reposting a Bloomberg article, which feels, Bloomberg feels like, it seems like a reputable news source. It's also owned by Michael Bloomberg, so who the fuck knows? But let's see. Senators from both sides of the aisle swatted down the idea of fast-tracking legislation that would force TikTok's Chinese owner to sell the video sharing app within 6 months, reducing its prospect of becoming law. Okay. Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Connecticut Democrat, he was used to be one of my senators when I lived there. Said he supported separating TikTok from the influence of the Chinese government, but warned that the deadline in the bill to sell it or shut down its U.S. operations would be too short. Wow. What a lefty. Texas Republican Ted Cruz, who sits on the Commerce Committee, oh great, I'm glad he's on that, which has jurisdiction over the measure, said the Senate should refer it to the panel for further work. Great. So before they vote on it in the Senate, Ted Cruz is going to get his slimy ass hands all over it. I'm glad the House has acted, Cruz said Thursday, a day after the House of Representatives passed the measure by an overwhelming majority of 352 to 65. And this is in keeping with the old adage that if the Democrats and Republicans agree, you're probably getting fucked. But now he said the bill should be subject to a full amendment process. Okay. That could tie it up for months, potentially killing it in an election year when lawmakers are eager to get back home to campaign. Fuck these people. It's a fate that's befallen many bills in the past, and senators signaled that They were loath to rush on a bill to ban an app that's used by as many as 170 million Americans. God, that's so many. Is that over, like, what the hell? I can't do math. Is that over half the population of America? 330 divided by 170 is 1.9. Yeah, so it's like about half. Maybe, yeah, a little less than half. I don't fucking know, man. I'm stupid. It's a lot. It's quite a few. It's quite a handful of Americans. Let's just say that. But yeah, so it's used by as many as 170 million Americans. So literally, they're like, well, let's not ban it during an election year because we want people to vote for us so that we can ban it next year. You fucking assholes. Like, it's so transparent. There's two sides of this, like, insanity. There's people like, Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden who are like fully dedicated to doing the ban, because they just don't give a shit anymore what any of us thinks of them or what any of us needs or whatever. So they're just like, yeah, fuck you, I'll ban it. I don't give a shit. Vote for me anyway, bitch. But then you've got this other side of Democrats who are like, look, I hate China as much as anyone. I'm a xenophobic anti-communist myself. I'm something of an anti-communist myself, but I want to get reelected. So it's just, it's kind of an indirect fuck you. It's that's the ideological diversity among Democrats. It's that, is it fuck you now or is it fuck you later? Unbelievable. What are we fucking talking about here? Let's keep going on this. The ban would present senators with a thorny decision. A Pew Research Center poll from December showed 38% of Americans support a TikTok ban, down from 50% in March. And Republican calculations became trickier after Donald Trump, the party's presumptive nominee for this year's election, came out against a ban that he had supported during his presidency. Which is, again, this is interesting because Trump, he supported a ban when he was president. And then, what was it? That he, I think now has support. He has like campaign support from someone who is heavily invested in TikTok, something like that. Let's actually find out. Yeah. Okay. Well, Blumenthal says again, TikTok is lobbying full scale, no holds barred, no matter how much time they have. Blumenthal said, the House bill really has to be reviewed very carefully. Okay. So, yeah, I want to see what the Trump thing was. Trump. TikTok ban. I do want to get for the Twitch and YouTube viewers, I would like to get this article in the screen. So I'm going to see if I am able to do that. So I'm old. I am 35 years old here as I join or as I embark on this live streaming journey. See this? Fucking glasses sit crooked on my face. Although, to be fair, my face sits crooked on my face. My eyes are not at the same level. I don't know if I had a mini stroke at some point. I don't fucking know. But anyway. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Trying to use Streamlabs when I'm 35. My body's breaking down. Yeah, I don't know. I have a new scene. That ain't my scene, man. Okay. Chrome. Great. But okay, so it needs a source, browser source, right? Is this good content? Me trying to figure out how this fucking works? Never mind. That's an off-stream thing. All right. So, let's see. Well, this is good. Trump warns lawmakers that if this is Fox News. Trump warns lawmakers that if they ban TikTok, users will flock to worse. Yeah. Worse. Like what? Rumble and Gab and Parler. All that shit. You know, worse. But let's see. Yeah, let's read the Fox News article. Let's see what our friends at Fox News are saying. All right. There we go. Trump warned that U.S. lawmakers shouldn't ban TikTok because it would benefit Facebook, which he called a worse social media platform. Host Howard Kurtz prompted Trump, asking him why he apparently shifted his stance, now disagreeing with the 197 Republicans who recently passed a bill to ban the app. Trump replied saying previously gave the option of banning it to the U.S. government, but noted, I didn't do any jawboning. I didn't do anything. Like, yeah, I said I would, but I didn't. In my defense, I was lying. I just said, you guys want it banned if you want. And Congress probably didn't want it banned, you know, etc. It wasn't something that I was demanding. If I demanded it, I think I would have gotten it. Trump never fails, dude. Former president committed to signing an executive order to ban the app in 2020, telling reporters at the time, as far as TikTok is concerned, we're banning them from the United States. I have that authority. It's going to be signed tomorrow. Shortly after, 2 federal judges blocked Trump's executive order. Whoopsie. Okay. So that's cool. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that Fox News is not going to talk about the sort of financial backing that's affecting most likely Trump's opinion on this. So, let's see. This article I'm going to now, it's Steve Mnuchin from Variety. Steve Mnuchin didn't write it. I'm saying, here it is. Trump's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin wants to buy TikTok amid brewing threat of U.S. ban. Quote, it's a great business. Okay. Great, dude. So, it's possible that this has something to do with it. Steve Mnuchin said he's assembling an investor group to acquire TikTok. It's the worst version of Nick Fury ever. Is that his name? Nick Fury? I'm not a big Marvel guy. I think that's it. Why am I doubting that now? Nick Fury actor, Nick Fury comics. Okay, yeah, I think. Yeah. I don't know. Although there's no clear indication he could actually swing a deal with TikTok's parent, ByteDance, to buy the popular app. That's the thing. Like, they'd be losing a lot of users and viewers if it gets banned in the U.S. But again, we talked about how you can probably use it on the browser, especially if you have a VPN. You can have the app if you already have it. You just couldn't buy it from the App Store. You also couldn't update it, I guess. So in that way, yeah. So it would become unusable at some point, I guess. But what was I saying? Yeah. So even if that means you lose a lot of viewers, a lot of users in the U.S., probably wouldn't lose all of them. And this is a worldwide fucking thing, they have the Chinese version. They have the, I guess kind of the same version they have in the U.S. and in Europe and Asia and Africa, like all over the world. So, yeah, even North America, Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, you've got the whole world using it. So, yeah, they're going to be like, okay, even if we lose all 170 million U.S. users, yeah, fuck off. Who cares? I'm not going to sell my fucking company to some asshole. So, let's see. Mnuchin's comments come a day after the U.S. Effectively banned TikTok unless China sold off its ownership stake. Not China. China-based ByteDance sold off its ownership stake. The measure now goes to the Senate. Prospects of legislation are far less certain. Well, President Biden said he would... Yeah. Okay, we got it. I think the legislation should pass, and I think it should be sold, Mnuchin said. Yeah, because you want to buy it, asshole. I want the money. So it's a good thing if they sell it. Dumbass. It's a great business, and I'm going to put together a group to buy TikTok. This should be owned by U.S. businesses. There's no way that the Chinese would ever let a U.S. company own something like this in China. Which I don't think is true. I mean, maybe if you're talking about like social media, because they have their own kind of, you know, separate version of TikTok. Um, but they do have Facebook and Twitter and stuff. So I don't fucking know. But yeah, so I mean that's ridiculous. There are U.S. companies that function in China. They just have to go by kind of Chinese laws, Chinese government regulations. But that's also true of like foreign companies that function in the U.S. So if this was really about regulating, data scraping and shit, the Congress could just do that. They could just do that, right? But no, this is again xenophobia, anti-communism, and it's certainly at least somewhat related to APAC, because I think APAC wants this to happen more than anyone, because as much as I don't want to oversell this, because TikTok does ban and take down pro-Palestine content, but they're maybe not as bad as other social media platforms, at least at when it comes to promoting pro-Israel content. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, so like I had pro-Palestine stuff taken down a few times on TikTok, but with appeals, most of it got put back. They put it back up, so it was still allowed to flourish a little bit. Like you still have like a wild amount of this content. Maybe they just couldn't keep up with it, and TikTok was like a good way to spread this information. So I think that, and the fact that it's kind of influencing young people to be more politically involved. Hey, sorry, I just saw your comment. Is I can't read your thing, but it is a male. Ishmael, I'll call you Ishmael, says, "What is your religion? You look religious." I don't know. That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, culturally, my religion is Catholicism, or you could even call it more of a vague, just blanket Christianity. But never was all that religious. But I do, I have Catholics and Protestants and Jews in my family. So, it's a bit of a mix. And because of that, especially it's on my mom's side, there is not a whole lot of emphasis placed on like specific religious practices, because it caused tension between my grandpa's Russian Jewish family and my grandma's German Protestant family. Their parents were not super approving of that. So now our family is a little more like, hey, do your thing. Nothing wrong with it. So hope that answers your question. I don't know if he's still if they're still here, but there you go. Not a big religious boy. Great. Mnuchin was a prolific film financier with producing credits including Mad Max Fury Road and American Sniper. Great. He's just a guy with money who puts money places. Great. Currently heads a private equity firm. Oh, that's awesome. Liberty Strategic Capital. Is there a more fucking dystopian name than that? Liberty Strategic Capital. Here at Liberty Strategic Capital, we we strategize your capital so that you have liberty when it comes to your equity. Sorry, my washing machine is making crazy sounds. This is our combination office, laundry room, guest room, music room. So, a lot of stuff happening in here. All right, is there anything else here? Earlier this month, invested $450 million in struggling New York Community Bancorp. As a result, Mnuchin joined NYCB's board. Yeah, this guy fucking sucks. TikTok CEO Shuzi Chu. I hope. In a video the company posted Wednesday on X, commented on the disappointing vote by the House. Quote, this legislation, if signed into law, will lead to a ban of TikTok in the United States. Even the bill's sponsors admit that that's their goal, he said. This bill gives more power to a handful of other social media companies. Chu added, we will not stop fighting and advocating for you. Yeah, okay. Again, it's like, okay, I like most of what he's saying here. He's still a fucking CEO. So let's ease up on the fighting for you. We will continue to do all we can, including exercising our legal rights to protect this amazing platform that we have built with you. He also urged TikTok's American users to protect your constitutional rights and make your voices heard, opposing the legislation to U.S. senators. And if you haven't seen this guy testify to the Senate, I guess it's the Senate subcommittee, or it's a Senate committee on fucking whatever it is. And it's like they just ask him over and over if he's like a member of the Chinese Communist Party. And meanwhile, he's he lives in America, and he's from Singapore. Like, he literally has almost nothing to do with China. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, good. Another Trump thing. So, Trump is running for president. Disfavors a TikTok ban, not for First Amendment reasons, but because such a move would benefit Mark Zuckerberg's Meta. Quote, if you get rid of TikTok, Facebook, and Zucker Schmuck. This fucking guy. Why not Schmuckerberg? Will double their business. He posted on Truth Social. Oh, I forgot about Truth Social, dude. Calling Facebook a true enemy of the people. As president, Trump was unsuccessful in attempts to force ByteDance to sell majority control in TikTok to U.S. owners. Forgive me, my mouth gets very dry. I gotta just do a thing real quick. You know how it is. Oh yeah, did you guys know it's St. Patrick's Day? How about that? Yeah, I feel like major events. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm like really tuned in to like everything that's happening when it comes to Gaza and you know. excuse me, TikTok bans and all of that shit. Because I pay attention to this stuff, this might be why I feel this way, but it seems like just huge events are passing with no notice. Just shit that would holidays, first of all. I mean, usually I feel like I hear about St. Patrick's Day and people are wild about it. And, or even Christmas, New Year's Eve, all this shit. And now nothing really goes on. Like, just kind of like, oh, fuck, look at that. It's St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. But that, and major events too, how many people have self-immolated in the past couple of years, right? The latest obviously being, Aaron Bushnell, who did it in front of the Israeli embassy on behalf of Gaza, in protest of the genocide in Gaza. And it's just wild that, can you imagine? I don't know. I feel like growing up, maybe even 10 years ago, but certainly 20, 30 years ago, shit like that would stay in the news for a bit, and now it just, there's a little bit of talk about it. There's a lot of bullshit spread about it. And then it just sort of, fades into the background. But I don't know. So yeah, this election. What are we feeling? What are we thinking about this upcoming election? See, that too. I mean, the election year used to feel like something was fucking going on, Not anymore. Just kind of everything just sort of passes. Everyone's going through the motions. I think part of that is just the decay of not only capitalism but the United States and the United States global empire. As all of this falls apart, it's just kind of all of this, again, we're going through the motions. And the other thing, too, is that we've literally had pretty much the same presidential election 3 times in a row. I know it was Hillary in 2016, but, Biden was kind of the choice to, not add, what am I saying? He was like the Hillary Clinton type to put into, that fills sort of the establishment slot. They went with the most corporate, most establishment Democrat that nobody wanted. And you have that person versus Donald Trump 3 times in a row. Obviously, Trump lost last time. I think a lot of that had to do with, first of all, with Biden, just pretending, I guess, to negotiate with Bernie Sanders. There was the Bernie Biden Commission, and all the activists involved with that. He was pretending that, we can figure something out. We can work with this. I know it's not going to be everything you wanted, but we can, take care of some of this stuff. So you start. That's how they got the support of the rest of us, the people who actually, there was more popular support overall for the Bernie Sanders and even like Elizabeth Warren side of the party. But what am I? Yeah. So that helped Biden in 2020. It also helped that, you know, we had an incumbent President Trump who was very unpopular for Biden to run against. And now Biden is in a much weaker position than even Trump was last time as the incumbent. So, I don't think Biden has a great chance of winning. And I also don't think that voting for the Democrats is like the harm reduction option anymore. I just don't. And you can vote for them. Like I understand the impulses to do so, and I'm not gonna I'm not out to fight anyone on it at this point. But yeah, as a socialist, I feel that excuse me, there we go. As a socialist, like I feel that it's time for socialists to support socialists in elections, and even if that's the presidential election, where like Jasmine Sherman, who I interviewed, or Bill Stodden from the Socialist Party USA, or Claudia De La Cruz from Party for Socialism and Liberation. These people are not going to win the presidency. But again, it's just, I'm not signing my name anymore to genocide and imperialism. And I want to vote for one of these people to kind of, support the movements they're building. I think PSL is a flawed organization, but I know that I've seen the local near me do a lot of good work. It seems like they work with the community a lot. They have the what's called the Boston Liberation Center, where they do reading groups and panels and events and discussions and all this stuff, that which to me, like, that's what socialism is all about. So it's very clear that they're not just doing like the Green Party thing, where you never hear about the Green Party. You never hear about Jill Stein. Nothing against her. Jill Stein's fine, but like, you never see them really doing anything else except running a candidate every 4 years, just as a protest candidate. I'm more impressed by, again, PSL, but also independents like Jasmine Sherman, who, she's been going for 3.5 years. She's been campaigning. And it's got to be a slog, man. But, again, these people are movement building, and that's important for socialism. We don't want just like a top-down socialism, like we've seen in a lot of places, which, there are things I will defend about even China and the Soviet Union, but like, yeah, Cuba, Vietnam, not so much North Korea now, but more like early on before the U.S. fucking destroyed them. What's his name in Chile? The guy that we did a coup on. Allende. Yeah, Salvador Allende. The Grenada Revolution was very impressive. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is, like, there are a lot of benefits that have come from Marxist-Leninist revolutions. But I would like to see more kind of community-oriented, and I think they have some stuff like this in Cuba and China. But yeah, I think we should build like community-oriented, kind of bottom-up, bottom-up and middle out, like fucking Biden says. No, fuck you, bottom-up, community level, when possible, like non-hierarchical organizing. That shit's really important. So the people I see doing that and running candidates, I think that's really good. I mean, that's fucking Lenin. Lenin talked about that. He talked about like participating in bourgeois elections, even though it's not the be all end all of revolution. It's not really revolution, but we should participate. We should have, campaigns be part of the I'm tired, man. My week is Tuesday to Saturday, so I'm like decompressing now. My brain's fried, but yeah. So like, we should participate in elections. That gets names out there. That gets the names of organizations out there. DSA even, like, yeah. I know people have mixed feelings about them, and that's fine. Like I totally get it, but that the fact that they run candidates, they've gotten some people elected, and that's important. Even though they're like working within the Democratic Party, it's really you can't do much but pursue like reformist goals in office, especially in a country like the U.S. that is not a parliamentary system, and a country like the U.S. where you kind of have to be in the Democratic Party to win an election. So yeah, it's just kind of they pursue like reformist goals, and that does not often lead you to revolution. Like that's kind of never really happened. But the Bolsheviks winning elections and running in elections in Russia was part of what led to the October Revolution. You can't downplay too much like the effect that had. So, I believe in that, and that's why I am likely going to vote for either Jasmine Sherman or Claudia de la Cruz. But yeah, so I'm going to put some clips up on TikTok. I've been meaning to do it. But you can see clips of my interview with Bill Stodden from the Socialist Party of the United States of America, SPUSA. It's easier to say. You see clips of that over on my TikTok, and you can see the full interview over on YouTube. Radicalize Me 5380. That's the username if you want to search at Radicalize Me 5380. And you can see what he says. You can see my full interview with Jasmine Sherman. You can also find her on TikTok. She's very they are very active on TikTok. And Claudia de la Cruz and Karina Garcia, who's her running mate, are very, very active on TikTok, and Instagram and Twitter. Like they're good with their social media game. You can find them at Vote Socialist 2024, I believe, on TikTok. I have not had the chance to interview them. I would really like to do that. But yeah, again, I'm doing this stuff so that people can hopefully see it and learn what these movements and what these campaigns are about, so that we can do things in and out of elections, inside and outside of elections, that will support the movements. And if you don't consider yourself a socialist, that's okay. I'm not going to gatekeep. Come check it out. Check out these interviews. Check out, my videos. There's like a million people on here making great content about socialism's past, present, and future. About learning from the mistakes and successes of the past. Adapting our the teachings to today and the people's needs of the moment. And if you're not a socialist yet, that's okay. Come on in and just see what it's about. If it's not for you, you can go back to voting for Democrats and Republicans, and Okay, Jess asks, what's the most interesting socialist movement from history in your opinion? That is a great question. Damn. Okay. I'm gonna talk through this a little bit, and maybe I'll be able to come to like what's my most interesting. But Marx and Engels' most interesting was the Paris Commune. So the Paris Commune was a short-lived revolution that was it was, I guess, more of an anarchist thing. I don't know a whole lot about it, but that really fascinated them because it was the first major attempt to, break with the capitalist class, for the working class to break with the capitalist class. So that is a fascinating moment in history because not only was it it was the first attempt there. It's what got Marx and Engels' minds going about it, and that's really cool. So there's that. And then I would say that, I love the Bolshevik Revolution, and there's a lot of ink has been spilled about the Bolsheviks and what happened after this revolution. Right after the founding of the Soviet Union, the first 5 years was like Lenin. Lenin was in charge, and it was the, God, I always forget the acronym, but it's like the Russian Federated Socialist States or something like that. It wasn't the USSR yet. And, when the USSR formed, very shortly after, Lenin dies and Stalin comes to power. And again, very divisive figure. And there's a lot that's been said about like what bad things he did, what maybe good things he did. But it's very fascinating how the Bolshevik Revolution really was, while the Paris Commune was the first attempt to break with the capitalist class, but the Bolshevik Revolution was the first successful attempt. All right. So that's a really cool moment in socialist history. And, if you think that, well, after those first few years, it just degenerated into being more of like a state capitalist or whatever thing that it was, that kind of eschewed the values that it was meant to represent. That's fine. And then, so one I really appreciate is the Cuban Revolution. So that might be my answer, is the Cuban Revolution, because I really admire Che and Castro for the just the resolve that they had in going up against not only a brutal dictatorship in Batista, but really, because he was backed by the U.S., going up against the U.S. empire. All right. So they have this little island nation 90 miles off the coast of the United States. And they go up into these mountain ranges in Cuba to train. And they just have this ragtag bunch of guys who were really just like kind of they were kind of the Rebel Alliance from Star Wars. It was not very political at first. They were liberals. They were just like, yeah, we want democracy. We don't want this like brutal dictatorship of Batista anymore. And as time went on, Castro, and this is very similar to Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. At first, it was just I want to free my people. We're under the rule of the French. We want to free our people. But as time went on, Ho Chi Minh and Castro both found that the Marxist-Leninist principles of revolution and leadership were the only effective way at, shaking off the colonial entity and maintaining their revolution. And proof is in the pudding. Like the Viet Minh or the Viet Cong fought off America, and it was devastating. They suffered devastating losses, but they fought off America. Like, we left. And now, Vietnam is I think it's kind of a mixed economy. It's not like a, totally socialist state, whatever the fuck that's supposed to be. But, it's a very successful country, and Cuba is a very successful country despite what the U.S. has done to it for the past 60 plus years, which is maintain this trade embargo against them. But again, like the reason I love the Cuban Revolution so much is because, they did their initial revolution just for like the quote vague democracy, whatever. But then they learned and they applied what they learned. They said, okay, I think that we're going to go with this. And then they became trade partners with the Soviet Union. That helped them a lot, given the embargo that was going on. So when people talk about like the empty shelves in Cuba, whatever, there's no food. That's mostly like the 90s when the Soviet Union fell and Cuba lost its biggest trading partner. They not only survived that, they survived, I think it's over 600 attempts to assassinate Castro. Like the fucking United States, it was the CIA made 600 attempts to fucking assassinate Castro, and he evaded every single one. It was like Looney Tunes or something. Like they were trying to get him to smoke exploding cigars and shit, and he just never let it happen. There's a fantastic kind of news documentary about there's this moment in, I think, like the mid 60s where Castro comes to America for, I think it was some international summit, maybe maybe a UN thing, something like that. And of course all the world leaders come and they stay in these fancy hotels in Midtown Manhattan or whatever. Castro goes to Harlem, okay? He talks to the African American movement leaders and community members in Harlem. Because he was for real, like people talk about him just being one, like, oh yeah, he was just a dictator who like, wanted power and said what he had to say to get power, like whatever. Like, I'm not going to say he was perfect or that like their government system was perfect, but no, he believed this shit. And that's why he went to sit down with Malcolm X and the Black Panthers and other, maybe the Black Panthers didn't exist at that point, but like, but Angela Davis and Kwame Ture, these people, and he stayed in a hotel in Harlem instead of fucking, the fancy downtown digs like the rest of the world leaders. So, that's what I love about Castro. And there's a great moment in that documentary when his plane lands. And the plane is nothing fancy. I don't know if it was a private plane or what, but it's nothing fancy. And Castro, he's wearing, his olive green kind of guerrilla military fighter outfit that he always wore, like to his death almost. He seemed to like track suits near the end, but whatever. But yeah, he's wearing his green jacket. He's got the hat. He's got a cigar. And when he lands, there's a news crew because this is like a documentary. And they ask him because they at this point 1965 something like that. They're already at odds with the U.S., right? So you have the U.S. really bearing down on Cuba, and I don't know if there had been assassination attempts at that point, but whatever it was, the news crew asks him, are you scared? Are you at all worried about being here? Because a lot of people don't like you here, and the government's not too fond of you. So he puts his cigar in his mouth. He unbuttons his jacket, pulls it open to reveal his bare chest, and says something in Spanish like, I have no fear. I have no fear. And that's the other thing about Castro is he was fucking cool. Like, the way that like Obama was kind of cool, but obviously Obama is not like a leftist revolutionary. But he had the same effect on people that, and I imagine this is why the U.S. found him so dangerous, because he was fucking cool. People liked him. He was fun to watch speak. It was fun to watch his mannerisms and just watch him hang. He was just a guy being a dude, I think that's terrifying for our leaders who are decrepit old fucks. So that's a little about Castro and the Cuban Revolution, the July 26th, 26th of July movement. That was what. Yeah. I think they were great. Yeah. So that's probably my best answer to what's the most fascinating movement in socialist history. It's hard to say just one. Obviously, I've been rambling, but yeah, I really love that one. There's one I learned about recently, which is kind of current, like it's kind of still a thing, is the Rojava. I don't know how you the Rojava Revolution. So, like, I don't, not to be fucking Destiny or whatever, but just as an overview, the Rojava conflict, also known as the Rojava Revolution, is a political upheaval and military conflict taking place in northern Syria, known among Kurds as Western Kurdistan or Rojava. During the Syrian civil war that began in 2011, a Kurdish-dominated coalition led by the Democratic Union Party, as well as some other Kurdish, Arab, Syriac, Assyrian, and Turkmen groups, have sought to establish a new constitution for the de facto autonomous region, while military wings and allied militias have fought to maintain a control of the region. Okay. But basically, you have this revolutionary group here. Here we go. The Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, AANES. AANES. I don't know. It's not the catchiest thing, but supporters of AANES state that the events constitute a social revolution. Social, not socialist. But with prominent role played by women both on the battlefield and within the newly formed political system, as well as the implementation of democratic confederalism, a form of libertarian socialism that emphasizes decentralization, gender equality, and the need for local governance through direct democracy. So this is it's like choosing your favorite child. Yeah, no, absolutely. My favorite child, of course, is my cat, who's my only child at this point. But but yeah, no. So this is like a really cool modern one, which is it's like all these women with who are very similar to the 26th of July movement, to the Viet Cong, to even the Bolsheviks. You see these ladies all with their what do they call them? Fatigues, the kind of like camouflage, and their hats and their guns, and like, fuck yeah, like it's so cool. This is what I'd love to see more of, because we're like a lot of these revolutions were very, very male dominated, because got to keep in mind that like revolutions are revolutions, but they're still coming out of the existing status quo. So you're going to replicate some of the harmful factors of that, which includes patriarchy. That is going to carry over sometimes. And there were women who played a role in all of these, in the Bolshevik Revolution, in the Chinese Revolution, all of that. But it's great to see women leading here, because institutions like patriarchy are one of the things that we want to fucking get rid of with revolution. So Jess said, one of the most interesting parts of Rojava to me is that they are training all community members to perform the duties of police. I think that it's a good practical example of how the withering away of the state could happen. That's a really good point. Yep. I have to, I really have to read up more on the Rojava revolution, but yeah, it's really interesting, because it's also something that, Marxism-Leninism is kind of the dominant socialist theory, because I think because it had been sort of the most successful way to do a revolution, and again, to maintain a revolution. So, it totally makes sense that people would, that people would look at it as sort of the best way to be a socialist or to do a revolution. And, but it is like you end up with a very top-down system. Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, it's all this shit is such a mouthful, but like, that's what China says it practices, and you can argue how socialist China really is, whatever, but this problem of sort of the top-downness of a lot of these revolutions is not ideal, and it's not really what kind of Marx envisioned, which is fine. He was theorizing, so reality's not going to be exactly like that. But it's great to see a seemingly successful revolution, or that's like, on its way to success, doing this more libertarian socialism. And, libertarian socialism is something I've seen kind of mocked a lot. I might have even participated myself a little bit because it's this sort of more idealized, seemingly form of socialism, where it's like, well, if you follow the theory, it's supposed to kind of, break down hierarchies and, have institutions like the police, just emerge out of the community. And I think a lot of the, even from our socialist intellectuals like Michael Parenti will say, like, yeah, great. Like, I love that you have these principles, but like, let's look at reality. And in reality, communists have achieved this, this, and that. And he's right. Like, I love Michael Parenti, but it's really cool to see that, like, this is happening, right now in the world. There are these fucking cool as hell girls out there, ladies, fighting a revolution in, supposedly the way that Marx envisioned. And, oh my God, what? Verify to continue. I just had to put a puzzle piece in place to fucking keep streaming. I don't know what the fuck that was. But yeah, so I really like to see that. And it's also, this stuff should change over time. Like, we should adapt, because that's what dialectical materialism is about. It's, okay, what are the conditions here? And how do we adapt our theory, our beliefs, to the material conditions of our time? Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience. Damn. Are you telling me that there are anti-communists on here? Come on. But no, it's cool. Yeah, again, adapt. We should be adaptable. So to me, they are doing dialectical materialism. They're doing Marxism, and I love to see it. Got to learn more about that. One socialist leader I love is Thomas Sankara. Starting to hear him talked about more, especially now that his country, Burkina Faso, is kind of having another revolution. Remains to be seen how kind of socialist they are, but there was recently a coup, I guess, by a revolutionary group there, and they are intent on kicking out the U.S. and the French. Ibrahim Traore. Yep. But yeah, this is the guy who started it all, had a very, very successful revolution and new government in Burkina Faso. It's an African country. It was short-lived, unfortunately, because he was fucking assassinated. Yeah. You kick out the settler colonialists and, feed, clothe, and educate all your people. The U.S. doesn't like that. Multinational corporations don't like that. But to bring it back to my favorites, the Cubans, you have to be a dreamer to achieve what Sankara did, but I think it was his undoing too. Yeah, I mean, didn't believe his friend would betray him. Interesting. Yeah, this is another one. I got to learn the detail. This is why I'm reading this. This is like his speeches. Thomas Sankara speaks. But yeah, I go back to Castro because Castro understood that your friend might betray you, or uh, you're going to have these outside influences like the United States, the West in general, multinational corporations, all this shit, or even internally, you'll have counter-revolutionary forces, and he understood that that you have to protect and fight against that. And a really important moment, I think, in socialist history is in the early 70s when Salvador Allende won the presidential election in Chile. This is like, wow, and he was maybe more of like a social democrat or whatever, but he was pretty revolutionary in terms of land reform and again, like kind of cutting down the influence of the U.S. corporations and that kind of shit. But yeah, this was like, oh, you can vote in socialism. That's great. I mean, that's like the right way, right? You don't fight and kill. But the Allende was taught socialism through socialist thought by an Italian anarchist when he was a young man. Interesting. I mean, maybe that's where like anarchists tend to be more like pacifistic, maybe, and kind of don't like the Marxist-Leninist approach to revolution. But there was a point where Castro said to Allende, "You gotta fucking protect against counter-revolutionary forces from within and without, because they're going to come after you." And wouldn't you know it, they fucking came after him. He tried to be a good boy. That's the thing. He was like, I'm nonviolent. His supporters were when when he handed him the gilded AK as a gift / as a warning. That's awesome. Again, Castro, too cool for America. They lost their minds. But yeah, and he was warning Allende, like, they're going to come after you. And Allende's supporters in the country were very militant. Not necessarily in the violent sense, but like in terms of movement. Like they would like mobilize for him. But there was a point where he went and said to his supporters, like, all right, like, thank you for your support, but go home, like, relax. Let's not be violent. Boo. And then there was a fucking coup. And the U.S., I think it was the U.S. influencing the Chilean army who overthrew Allende. And the U.S. put Pinochet in power, who was from the Chilean army. And he was, brutal dictator. Again, it was another Batista. And interestingly, that coup took place on September 11th, 1973. So that was, the first 9/11. It's more of a 11/9, I guess, because it was not the U.S. But yeah, it's. I think that a lot of people talk about how violence is bad. Violent revolution is bad because it's violent. And really, a lot of them just think violent socialist revolution is bad. But maybe not everyone knows that that's what they actually think. Because try to get an American to question whether the American Revolution should have been violent. Like, not many, even socialists will recognize, because of how Marx looked at history, will recognize that, like, Oh yeah, I mean, the bourgeois revolutions of the late 18th and early 19th centuries were an important step in history. You know, you shake off the aristocracies, the monarchies. You have this new bourgeois class, which is more of a progressive force in history, as much as, you know, now if we look at the bourgeoisie as our class enemies, they were an important force in moving history forward at the time. But yeah, so you like talk to any American about like, well, should Washington have done all that violence? Like it's absurd on its face. Like, yeah. So it's really just this thing where we're told that like communism is bad, and that is like seared. It is branded into your brain from such an early age in this country. And I think even other Western states like probably don't know the extent to which this is done in the U.S. It's everywhere, and that's just burned into your brain. And it's communists are bad because they're violent, because of this and that famine or whatever. Meanwhile, you know, capitalism is maintained through violence all over the world. And, you know, we're just taught to never question that. Never question what, like, yeah, violence happens everywhere. But for whom? By whom? You know? Like, the, we're told that violence is bad, but yeah, like who is doing it and why matters when you're talking about politics and you're talking about political violence. So yeah, I mean there is a difference between Castro overthrowing Batista and keeping internal and external counter revolutionaries from tearing down their revolution versus, say, Israel, Israel and Palestine, or you know, any settler colonial project, or the U.S. extracting resources, you know, killing leaders, overthrowing leaders, putting in puppet leaders in other countries for the good of multinational corporations. Like, that's violence. And I think it's pretty clear, you know, who benefits when the U.S. imperialist violence is done versus, you know, the Cuban revolutionary violence, the Vietnamese revolutionary violence, you know. And yeah, Jess says the opportunity cost of not getting rid of capitalism is the untold violence that mostly the developing world is subjected to day in, day out. Yeah, yeah. Nobody says sic semper tyrannis. I don't remember what that means. Sic semper tyrannis. So it feels important because it's Latin. But yeah, Latin phrase meaning thus always to tyrants. In contemporary parlance, it means tyrannical leaders will inevitably be overthrown. Yeah. Yeah. The only option left is violence, brother. It's time to start training. I cannot condone or condemn that statement while I'm live. But let's talk elsewhere. Yeah, it's you know, it is inevitable. And that's, you know, it gives me a little hope That doesn't mean we can't. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything, because it only happens if people take action. But yeah, I think ultimately it's inevitable that capitalism is overthrown. Capitalism has proven to be very resilient, which is a problem. I think Marx failed to predict that. It puts itself on life support over and over, and that's, it's hard to break through. But I think we will eventually. Yeah, winky face to you too. Yeah, man. Tyranny is very unsustainable, because I mean, look, Israel and Palestine is such a good, like, it's not good, but it's like it's a microcosm of this. You know, they're trying to enforce what is seen, or at least called, the birthright of Jews to occupy Palestine, and this does not represent all Jews in the world. There's plenty. There's thousands and thousands of Jews in the U.S. alone, leading the opposition to what they're doing right now in Gaza. But yeah, I mean, that's the point, is that you can't have this like supremacist state that favors one religion or ethnic group, with all the violence it takes to maintain that. It's just crazy. It's not sustainable, because sic semper tyrannis, there's always going to be a resistance. I saw this really cool clip from this girl in Gaza. I think it was Gaza, where she's like on a tirade against Netanyahu. Some maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the West Bank or something. There was a reporter there, so I don't know. But she was on this tirade against Netanyahu, and she was like, "We will never surrender. We will never." It's like wild to hear from like a 10-year-old girl. I don't know how old she was, but like wild to hear. But you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's what happens. I mean, if Israel was serious, and I don't think they are, about like rooting out extremism and terrorism and violence, then they wouldn't be doing what they're doing, because you don't like root out Hamas by bombing all these people. They support Hamas because Hamas is the main resistance against all this shit. So, I'm looking at this girl thinking like, even if they destroy Hamas, whatever the fuck that means, she's going to be in Hamas 2.0. And this is just going to go on forever until people are liberated. And that's what socialism is about. It is about true liberation for all oppressed peoples. It's about an end to the capitalist, imperialist, extractive force that has dominated this planet for at least the past 500-600 years. It just can't last. There's no political liberation without economic liberation. Very true. And that's one thing that is really just totally missed by liberals, right? Because liberals will talk and act a lot like they want liberation and freedom for people and rights and all of that shit. But without economic liberation, you can't have it. It's not going to happen. What does that mean? Well, you know, our our government and our institutions have become a lot more diverse, like visually, right? Over the past, Queen Bee just said, I thought so in the '60s. Since the '60s, we've become a lot more diverse in our institutions. And that's to kind of give the appearance that, like, oh yeah, we care about women and black people and indigenous people and all this shit. And so you put people from these communities in positions of power, which, there's nothing wrong with that on its face. I think that we should have leadership that represents the population, and that goes back to kind of the community based revolution, like the Rojavans. As long as it's NIMBY. Yeah. But yeah, it's so you have people. We have the first female uh, African American or Jamaican American, and Indian descent vice president, right? I don't know. Cool. What does that do for women? Like, oh, you could be vice president technically at some point. Great. I need to eat. You know what I mean? Like, I have no connection to my labor. I do not get paid relative to my labor. There's a capitalist exploiting me every single fucking day. So great that Kamala Harris is the vice president. In Rollerball, the corporations were the nation. Yeah, interesting. So Queen Bee asked, have you seen Network or Rollerball? I have not. Network, I think I've seen clips from. Is that the I'm mad as hell and not going to take it anymore? Because I think I've seen that. But sorry, cough drop is breaking up in my mouth. Yeah. So, and Rollerball, is that the one where they roller skate the whole time, or am I thinking of something else? The kind of post-apocalyptic, like, yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. But hey, do we have 9 people in here right now? That's awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. I just flipped this on today. Oh, now we got 7, but whatever. I I flipped this on today and just started talking, and it's cool that that some of you are sticking around to watch. Appreciate it. Mr. Jensen in the boardroom with Beale. Have you watched Helsing Ultimate Abridged? No. I'm not the biggest movie guy. I'm just kind of like I just kind of dropped the ball on being well versed in film at some point along the way. I actually studied script writing in college and wanted to be a oh, it's a series on YouTube. Interesting. But yeah, I wanted to be a scriptwriter. And yeah, I've done some stuff like that. I wrote a comic book with a friend. It's called Commander and Chef. It's about the White House chef becoming the president. But anyway, yeah, I actually wanted to do that stuff for a while, and I was kind of like trying to get into movies and learn more about them, but just kind of dropped the ball along the way, and got more into politics. But yeah, I'd take recommendations. I'd be happy to check out any good good stuff. Hi, Mark Caballero. Is it Caballero or Caballero? 579. The world is a business, Mr. Beale. Dictators are good for business. Yep, exactly. I think it's like 70% of the dictators around the world are supported by the United States. So, how do you like that? That's capitalist freedom for you. So, what's up with Helsing Ultimate Abridged, Brother Isaac? That's something we should check out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like I haven't watched much lately. If if Trump is elected, forget NATO. Cool. I'm I'm down with that. Um, I, mean, I don't like Trump at all, but uh, yeah, by nature of his insanity, he does a couple of things right, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership was rejected by Trump. That was one thing that during Obama's presidency, he was really pushing this Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, which would have, among other things, would have allowed multinationals to sue the government for enacting any policies that were, they deemed negative for their trade and their interest, which is some bullshit. And that was around when I started to think like maybe there's something wrong here. Maybe liberalism is not the final stage of politics. Yeah. Yeah, it was Obama for me, dude. Like, I was growing up during the George W. Bush administration. I actually lived through just about the entire H.W. Bush administration, but I don't remember it because I was a wee bebe. TPP was good for business, right, but not good for humans. But what was I saying? Oh yeah. So like I was growing up during the second Bush administration, and that I was a pissed off young man, and I was looking around and seeing that things were really not good. But I did what kind of I was taught by my family and community, which was the Democrats, they're gonna be better. So, I helped vote in Obama, and perfect timing, Jess, nothing changed. There were really things just kept getting worse. That's the thing about my lifetime. It's the Reagan years had happened, and then the Bush kind of extension of the Reagan years, and then Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. It just keeps getting worse. It's really wild to see. It's just nothing in Washington helps humans except social programs. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid help humans. I agree. Yeah, they are decent programs for a hyper capitalist nation like the U.S. There are social democratic nations that have kind of they have other programs, but they have probably better versions of these types of things too. Medicaid is can be very good. I've been on Medicaid in two states, Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. So Pennsylvania it was kind of horrible, as I remember. But I think it's better funded in Massachusetts. And when I first moved here, and I was like a part-time guitar teacher, and needed some fucking healthcare. I was on the thanks, Queen Bee. You have fun too. Whatever you're up to. Appreciate your participation, your contributions. But I don't know what I was saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Social programs. I mean, yeah, they're good, and social programs would be part of socialism. In fact, I believe that social programs, what's a lot of times referred to as social democracy, social democratic reforms, were in many ways a reaction to the take place in 1917. USSR forms in 1922, and then you know the Stalin in like Time magazine from the 40s, maybe, yeah, like late 40s, and you know that I'm sure contributed. And you have like this really strong labor and socialist movement in the United States too. And I'm sure that the high profile of the Soviet Union contributed to the fact that people wanted those things. That people wanted reforms that were going to improve their lives, and to stave off socialist revolutions in Western nations. You get kind of these social democratic, what are they called? Welfare states. Europe did more than the U.S. And it might be like because of proximity to the Soviet Union. I don't know what it was, but they had stronger socialist movements in Germany, Italy. I think maybe even UK, and yeah. So they instituted like pretty strong welfare states. But you're seeing a breakdown, and you're seeing a rise of the right in these countries too right now. And I think that's because, social democracy leaves capitalists ultimately in charge. It reduces their power, no doubt. If you have your needs met, you're not as, you know, beholden to corporations. You're not, as desperate to, rent your labor to them. But ultimately, they can kind of crack down whenever they see fit to reassert their power. Dr. Seuss made some favorable cartoons of Stalin back in the day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, if you guys will excuse me, I have been at it for an hour and a half, and I really need to pee. I will be right back. I don't have anything I can really like put on the screen at this point, but I will be right back. So stay tuned. Hey, hey. Um, so, thanks for sticking around. If you did. R. Kelly or P. Diddy? Man, that's tough. I gotta say, I'm not super familiar with the work of either of them. But if we're just going musically, I think I would say R. Kelly. You know, cannot condone either of their actions, but yeah, R. Kelly was, I believe I can fly. Right? Was that him from Space Jam? I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it. Yep. Every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. See me running through that open door. I believe I can fly. Believe I can fly. Believe I can fly. Yeah, that was a golden age of pop songs written for movie soundtracks back in the 90s. Of course, I was a kid then, so biased. Good day to you too, Elite McFeet 21. Right on. I think I'm going to wrap it up momentarily. I am, yeah, I'm kind of talked out. I've some other stuff to get to today as well. Because, yeah, I am a creator here on TikTok and over on not Face. I mean, you can follow me on Facebook, but YouTube. So look for Radicalize Me on YouTube. If you do at Radicalize Me 5380, that'll get you my channel. And we talk, a lot of the stuff we talked about today, socialism and pop culture as it relates to socialism, politics, current events. Am I a Blinker user? I'm not familiar with Blinker, Major Colonel. Oh, it turns it turn signal. I thought Blinker was a fucking social media. I am a turn signal user. Yes, I'm a big advocate for them. Kind of drives me crazy when people don't use them. Yeah, I was taught, roughly 3 seconds before you turn, and I try to do like 5. I'm a big driving safety guy. I'm old. I'm a little boring, but I really, I gotta say, I appreciate this. I qualified for streaming a few months ago, and I was a little nervous. I didn't know how it would go. Sometimes when you're 35, you feel a little out of place on something like TikTok. But those of you who are here today, I think we had up to 10 concurrent viewers at a time, which was not bad for our first time. I really, really appreciate it. Jess, thank you for being part of the stream. Your contributions really helped keep it going, so I appreciate that, and everyone else too. So thanks, y'all, and I'm gonna do this again soon. Sunday is the most likely. Sunday afternoon is the most likely time I'll be on. Possibly Mondays. We'll figure it out. But thanks again. You can follow and like and all that. See the rest of my work over on my channel. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.